Welcome to my garden. All right. Today with us, as you can see on camera, with his phone sitting upright because he's no boomer, John Paller from Opolis. Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you here, John. I have no idea. We're running into each other quite a bit these days. We were hanging out in Paris, had a great time. And now he's gearing up for so much with MCon coming around and the invasion of the buffercorns of the adjacent state. And also a lot of things coming up with Opolis. So I'm really excited to give you the word. Say hi to everybody. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me. I just put a text into like somebody downstairs, and I'm gonna have them bring me some sunglasses just for sport here.
Yeah, good work. Good work.
Buen trabajo.
GM. It's actually the first time that this happens. I always like try to wear a different sunglasses, just basically switching between the two I have. And this is the first time that Deacon and Van joined me for this ridiculous ritual. So thank you.
I can't even see the screen, so it's
It just looks cool. It just looks cool. It's like I can't really see anything. I don't really know what's going on. I'm just gonna wear these and make sure that I look cool.
and the sun always shines.
Good job, Travis. Yes, yes, sir.
Nice.
All right, so let's get while John is waiting for his house goblins to bring him sunglasses. Deacon, what's up with Dow House this week? What has happened? Tell me more. My life and wallet are crawling with monsters and maps. What the fuck?
Yeah, monsters and maps. We had the DGov hackathon closed up. The Raid Guild DAO, their cohort just had a graduation this morning, which was awesome. And Gnosis Safe Minions. So one of our community members submitted to the DGov hackathon a safe minion, which is basically a rewrite of the minion so that all these treasuries that are hooked to DAO House are actually safes. It's in the background. You wouldn't even notice it. You could open it in the Gnosis Safe app if you wanted, but the DAO is managing it. The DAO governance controls it. It's really cool bit of composability, projects working together to build stuff. So that's going to be really neat. It also opens up a lot.
Is it live?
Of safe stuff, of like all their different modules, like safe snaps and whatever, all the different things. So that'll be really cool. The DGov hackathon, someone had submitted a DAO House bookkeeping app, and this was some people from the Raid Guild cohort. Super cool. So think about like accounting for DAOs. When in an accounting system, you're usually you like to add notes and do different calculations. So it's the start of that. So that's going to be super cool. You can export all your proposals, show how funds are moving in between your different accounts and different minions and vaults. That's going to be neat. Monster maps, super cool. Crazy hack we did over the holiday weekend. It was a US holiday weekend. One of these text-based NFT games, and just the whole community exploded around it. We've got like apps coming out every day. We've got subgraphs coming out. We've got all these new ideas inside of our Discord. We're basically running like a live D&D game, a blockchain D&D game where people are creating these monsters and then putting them on quests and getting paid bounties in the raid token. So 2 DAOs started in that community already. One of artists that are drawing graphical representations and NFT art around these quests and these monsters. And another one, which is the cartographers, which are kind of like the game masters. And they're funding with bounties and doing things like that. So pretty exciting and fun. Super fun game if you're into that D&D aesthetic and this crazy
So
NFT.
find the Monsters and Maps Discord.
Yep. Into our Discord.
It will bring you joy. I got downgraded. I don't have camera anymore. Boom.
Oh.
No problem. You don't need to see my ugly face, and I can do without these sunglasses. So, but then all these people are creating all this stuff, and they're earning money, and they're getting all these like weird, unpredictable, and irregular income streams from several thousand collaborations and NFTs and IP and all of this stuff. And 2 years in, more or so, is just like, maybe I want to buy a house now, or maybe I need to have health insurance, or maybe I should figure out how to pay taxes on this shit. That's where Opolis comes in. Oh, segue master right here. Val, tell us about Opolis, man. Tell us about what you've been building and what you've achieved over the last few months.
Yeah, so we've been building essentially what we describe as the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. So for context, my background is in HR tech and employment systems. So I've been in the employment game for almost 20 years. And I mean, I've W-2'd in a previous life, like 35,000 people in 40 states. So when I took my own journey down the crypto rabbit hole in 2016, late 2015, I had this sort of, you could call it an existential crisis about like, oh my God, like everything that we do from a, legal structure, hierarchical standpoint, compliance, all this has to be reworked. So what we built with Opolis is basically a replication of employment without having to give up a person's sovereignty or independence. So in terms of like, DAO speak, it's an employment DAO with a legal wrapper. In normie land speak, it's a digital employment cooperative. It's tokenized. It's got a whole microeconomy that incentivizes its membership to build it. So whether it's consumption or referrals or staking, so we basically just created a modern version of employment. And we're doing so while still maintaining all the compliance crap that we're expected to do, right? So like things like, paying taxes and figuring out how to get a W-2, or maybe how do I qualify for, unemployment insurance? How do I, there's a ton of things that are questions around, like if you're going to work in the metaverse or work for DAOs, how do you function and have a normal life? Well, Opolis is essentially that. So in the spring, we completed what we call a community funding, communities funding communities capital raise. We didn't take any traditional VC money. We raised almost $6 million from the community, our largest contributor being a DAO, Badger DAO. And the reason for that, and the reason for the interest from these communities and these projects, is because the members need this, right? So their DAO membership need this. So we're just providing call it a public utility infrastructure, so that DAOs don't have to take on this responsibility. Because I've spent a lot of time unpacking the game theory of employment, and the cost of employment compliance is what creates this sort of control, this sort of paternalistic control mechanism. And if DAOs were to try to take on the employment responsibilities themselves, like it would tank the whole point of being a DAO, right? You'd feel just like a corporation. So Opolis basically puts the controls of the employment in the hands of each individual contributor, but does so inside the public utility infrastructure without compromising or bleeding any operational, overlap. There's absolutely no overlap or operational bleed between individual members. So we've seen a huge growth over this summer, and we've got a huge pipeline of people that are even slated to come in between now and the beginning of the year, with open enrollment coming up around the corner for most people in like November, December. For that would be for healthcare, of course. And healthcare is one of the core features in the U.S., and we will be expanding to other geographies across the globe. So like, it's not as a big a deal in other jurisdictions or countries, but for the U.S. it's a huge deal, because employment is tied to your healthcare. So unless you want to subjugate yourself to some corporation that's going to provide that for you, which most people in the metaverse or the DAO space don't want, that's the whole damn point. Like, where are you going to get it? Go pay out the nose for it through the state exchange, or just kind of YOLO and just not have it. Like, I don't know, with things like COVID running around, it seems like a good idea to have it. And Opolis basically gives our community the ability to procure high quality, low cost health insurance, much better than the state exchange rates, not only on cost, but the actual quality of the plans. And the community is self-insured. It's like, we've used some of the traditional plumbing, you could call it, of like, employment systems, but like we've Web3ized it. The whole goal of it long term is to be an entirely permissionless self-service public utility infrastructure that works for anybody globally to replicate the employment activity without, again, having to give up their independence. So that was kind of the long-winded version, Felipe, of what we've been up to over the last couple of minutes or the last couple of months, but you got it.
No, not too long-winded. It's very well rehearsed and to the point. And I think it's important, because I know all of this, but it's important for everybody else to kind of level the playing field so we can get really weird from now on. And honestly, I've been so excited about what you're building for so long that my only life goal at the moment is to not get arrested before you figure out Europe, and then
Well, we're coming. We're actually in the process of bringing on the staff necessary to scale internationally. So that would be Canada and Mexico and Puerto Rico and Australia and Europe, all sorts of things. So here we go. You guys ready?
Oh yeah.
So
all right. Well, I realized that I need to be very very careful, because Europe is at the end of that long list of adjointed territories, and so I still have to not get arrested for a pretty long time.
A little bit of time. Well, you're not in Malaysia, so you're okay. I mean, that's it's not like we're going to be, we won't be too long. Don't worry, we're coming. So,
one of the points you brought up, I thought was really good and something to highlight, is that this overhead. So one of the things that's awesome about DAOs is they can spin up really fast. They can be purpose-driven. They can be more like a corporation. They could be a giant ecosystem.
Very flexible. Yeah.
And they're cheap. You can spin them up fast if you put in the work to get the community going and all that. But one of the reasons it's cheap is because we don't have all this burdens of the legacy systems that we have to lay on top of everything, where it would almost be impossible to get a multinational team of people all together collaborating under one.
No, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. Like, it would defeat the whole purpose of I call it the high frequency of DAOs, right? Like, you want to keep the frequency and the fluidity of DAOs at a peak, right? Where you have the flexibility and the modularity. But the minute you got the regulatory stuff, like I said, regulatory compliance equals cost. Cost equals control. Control equals you look like a corporation. So it's a very slippery slope. So when I hear DAOs talking about, like, well, we want to employ our people and blah, 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 I'm like, dude, no, you don't. Like, no, trust me, you do not want to do that. It's gonna subjugate people in a way that I don't think you're intending to. It's, I think what you're trying to do is say, well, we're trying to create engagement and, make people feel like they have security and make them feel good about, like, what's going on. But, like, there's other ways to replicate that. That's the whole damn point of Opolis, right? Is to replicate the experience of safety and security through employment, but without having to give up the independence.
Right.
It's the cake and eat it too thing, right? So
yeah.
DAOs should, my word of caution to any DAO is, like, just make sure that you're managing to your flexibility and fluidity. Because if your tendency is to kind of go down the road of what business stuff does, like corporations do, you're just going to end up looking and feeling like a corporation. It's not gonna really be that different.
Yeah, those control mechanisms that you mentioned are super important. And also, yeah, I mean, to highlight that cost element a little bit more as well, like that's certainly one of the things that I'm most excited about with the whole system and what you're talking about. It's not only just the financial cost, right? It's the opportunity, or both opportunity and coordination cost of DAOs just having to manage that stuff. And
well, it's just like anything else. When you look at business process outsourcing, they call it BPO, right? In the traditional business world, there's all sorts of stuff you can outsource, right? And they do it because the business can outsource and scale it more efficiently than small businesses can do it themselves, right? So, there's a whole services industry built out of this. Well, the problem is most of these BPO services are all targeted at corporations, right? So there really aren't these business process outsourcing mechanisms or utilities aimed at individuals, right?
Right.
And that's the point, is creating scalability, but not just providing, not just creating an entity or a startup that actually provides services to individuals. There's actually in VC land, there's a few of them trying to do something similar, right? They're not dealing with the employment though, which is a different story, but like they're trying to provide, independent contractor benefits or whatever. But when you look at who the owners are, it's a bunch of VCs, right? So it's not like these are benevolent structures. They don't give a fucking shit about the actual independent contractors. They're just looking to exploit an opportunity, because that is where the trend is going from an employment standpoint. But what we said was, like, there's two things that are most important to sustain: benevolence and economic viability. So we have to build a model that's going to create a public utility infrastructure that allows people to really experience benevolence at scale. So once it gets big, it doesn't turn into some bureaucracy and forget that it's actually there to serve, the individuals of the community. And then number two, it's got to be a standalone, sustainable from an economic standpoint, which is why we have a community sustainability fee of 1%, right? It's not a huge fee. It's actually less than what you would pay for a traditional payroll outsourcing company to like do just your payroll. But like, we're actually doing it in a way that at scale creates returns for the community. So the members are the owners, just like a DAO, right? But we're actually creating a scalable service inside the ecosystem that everybody needs, and we're all incentivized to grow the total volume, right? So it's a really interesting sort of like layer cake of not just, the economic gain, the positive sum economic outcomes, and the actual services that create the pricing arbitrage and cost management for its various community members. So it's like, it took us 2.5 years just to build the design. So it wasn't a simple thing to build. To me, when I look at it now, it seems pretty obvious. Like, I don't know why we didn't just think of all this like right out the gate, but it takes time to like unwind some of the conditioning and some of the biases that you have and the way kind of shit currently works. And like, it took a long time.
That's an interesting thing.
We're all like
development. Look back, you're like, oh, well, this is so obvious. Why didn't we just do this at first instead of spending the last 8 months?
Yeah, no kidding.
All over the space. We're all just together, kind of pushing each other further, faster, stronger. And you look 1 year before, you go like, oh, this was actually quite obvious. And it's a very elegant game design that's kind of coming together, because I can't experience it. I wanted to know if there's somebody in the audience that is actually like employed in Opolis, or somebody that is using the
well, I'm not going to dox anyone. There are people on the call that are, so I'm not going to dox anyone. If they want to volunteer themselves, they can.
Yeah. How's the hand raising mechanics here? So how do we know who wants to speak? Maybe just post in house party chat, and we'll give you speaking powers. Oh, cool.
Well, so I know there's a few people on this call because I've talked to them about it, but What would
Anybody
so
want
with
to my
people now
baby?
working for multiple DAOs, they're like kind of fluidly moving around in different places. Like what are you like saying that they should be doing? It sounds like it should be like, as an individual, you should be your own kind of entity to kind of manage all this different kind of work you're doing across multiple DAOs.
Revenue stream. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we call this the employment wrapper, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to use one entity to kind of field all of your different revenue streams. So think about this like a corporation of many, right? A corporation of many has a bunch of different clients, right? So they got a bunch of different revenue streams coming in from all over the place. It all funnels into one, P&L where they, calculate their income and blah, 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 right? So you're just doing the same thing for yourself. You're just a company of one. So we're I don't want to say gaming the system because it's not a game. It's all this is perfectly legal, perfectly compliant, perfectly down the fairway, like straight down the center of the fairway. This fits their mold perfectly and what they expect. It just makes it legitimizes the individual metaverse contributor or the DAO contributor in a way that other BPOs, other service providers won't touch. Why? And here's the reason why. Business process outsourcing firms, payroll firms, benefits management firms only want to deal with volume. And if you're coming to them as one individual, you're not volume. They don't give a shit about you. And they can't scale that, right? So one. Imagine like having to hire an army of salespeople to go out and target onesie, right? So it's an impossible business model. So they just don't do it. And managing the risk is difficult because they don't try, right? Because it's much easier for them to the unit economics and the profitability of getting larger groups of people just makes a lot more sense. So the game design incentivizes them to focus on B2B. Well, in our world, we're saying, well, look, we've created token economics and incentives for our community members. Even if you're not a consuming member, Felipe, you can still become a coalition member and refer people. You can benefit from the rising tide before we actually, are able to.
I am a coalition member.
There you are.
I got a credit card canceled for giving you $20.
Did you? Oh boy.
But yeah, I haven't claimed anything yet, so I need to go do that.
You gotta go claim. Yeah, go on your dashboard and claim some work tokens there, yo. But yeah, I mean, the point being is like, we've created the wrapping system and the vertically integrated services stack so that the business owner of one can much more simply manage the different revenue streams, do so compliantly, right? Because there's a lot of questions about that. It's like, well, how do I do this compliantly? And what, like, none of us on this call really want to go to jail for anything. And I don't think that, foot faults is what they call this in the compliance world, where it's like you just inadvertently make a mistake or whatever. They don't really care. Like if you do it, you do it, is the way they look at it. It's kind of black and white. Your ignorance is not an excuse. So having the support system of a bridge between the two worlds of Web 2 and Web 3 is pretty nice to have because, you've got a whole community of people that's going to back you up on the things that we're doing, right? So legitimizing crypto payrolls, making sure that we're paying taxes and doing so compliantly and on time, making sure that you get your portable healthcare and all of these different. I mean, it's great, right? Because it basically it's set it and forget it. You get in and you're just like, I don't have to deal with this shit. Like once a year I'll have to deal with my tax returns and whatever, and there's probably a little bit of work to do there, but the rest of it's pretty much abstracted away.
Travis had a question. Do you want to go ahead and ask it here, or I can relay?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Thanks. Let's see. So, yeah, I had a question for John. I was wondering what kind of feedback Opolis has received from the traditional medical and retirement entities that it interfaces with, which are obviously centralized, these legacy systems. And it would be great to see them influenced by the principles of Web3 and DAO organization. So do you sense any kind of reciprocity with these entities that Opolis is working with? Does the bridge go both ways?
Not really. I mean, I'll just say that, like, you know, again, you have to think about the incentive design, and the incentives for these legacy systems are pretty bad. And the people working in these legacy systems are highly bureaucratic, and most of them lack any sort of vision and creativity. So they have very almost actuarial jobs, right? Like it's numbers and spreadsheets, and it's just very sort of vanilla. So we hold our nose and we deal with it. The community is now self-insured, so we don't have to deal with as much of the bureaucracy as we used to in terms of the healthcare. We do get to pick, like partners on the, like, let's say the solo 401k that are crypto friendly, right? So, we partner with groups that actually do work in that space, right? So, are they full Web3 DAO principle kind of values aligned? I don't know, probably not. A lot of these guys, you start dropping some of this stuff on them and they have no idea what you're talking about. Even though they were in crypto and we're in, crypto retirement plans, they don't know anything about any of this stuff. I mean, like from a coordination, social engineering, like the outcomes that we're trying to affect from a human standpoint, they haven't connected the dots yet. But they have a cool, product, and they're at least, tolerable, and they're not, they're not complete idiots, right? Like some of the people that we have to deal with in the legacy payroll HR systems, like compliance side, it's terrible. But we do it for you, right? We're sort of a buffer on a lot of that, but I don't suspect that we're going to see. So one of the things that I get asked a lot about is, well, what's the path to seeing mass corporate adoption of something like this? And I'm like, dude, you just missed the whole damn point. Like, this isn't about like going an enterprise selling this. This is a community emergent order thing. Like, the employees are going to opt out of your silly companies is what they're going to do. Right. And you're not going to have a choice. Okay. So you're asking me how to go, sell this into Facebook as a workforce management tool, right? So they can have compliance for their independent contractors and give them healthcare access and all this, which is all fine. It might be a path that we use as Trojan horsing, in a way, but you're not going to get partnership from them. You're not going to get values alignment. They don't really care. And it's right. Because they're
incentives that are already built there.
They're right? Incentives. It's the game design, right? Everything boils. Look, there really aren't, in my opinion, I see everything in terms of economic game design. My whole life, I see in, the matrix code of economic game design. So I think
it happens to everybody that sticks around with Web3 for long enough. You're just like, oh, holy shit! I never understood what was happening around.
I've been doing this for 10 years, and I didn't even realize that. Like, I've been trying to figure out how to democratize employment since 2005 is when I first said the word, and I had no idea what it meant, right? Because I was operating from a game design that was so backwards and not aligned with democratization of anything that it was fundamentally impossible for us to effectuate any remote outcome that might even smell close to democratization, because the game design was going to preclude it. It was never going to happen. And you could fight it all day long, but it's just not something you can do. So when I see situations like that now, you got to turn the table over and redo it, right? It's just, you're not going to. So I used to look at the world in terms of like good and evil and all this kind of stuff. I really don't anymore. It's mostly like people are just going to do what they're incentivized to do. It's the whole don't hate the player, hate the game. It's the most true thing ever, because the economic games that we've built are terrible from an incentives. They're not sustainable. The value distribution, the power distribution, like all of these things are just complete out of whack, and there really isn't any fixing it, because you've got all sorts of layers of problems in the game design that one of them is terminal, much less you add 3 or 4 onto the heap. So again, this is why it took us 2.5 years to design this, because sustaining benevolence in an economic game is not an easy thing because you have to think about technology, legal, governance, all of these different things that if you leave one of those vectors open, you're tanked, you're done. And it will get...
That's a new element wasn't a thing that was necessary to focus on in like a Web 2 company or something. Was like, they're actually, when all stakeholders can own and affect a system, now you have to care about them all, right? Which makes the game design much harder. But
much more multidimensional. Yes, right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about stakeholdership, game design, or stakeholder capitalism all day long. Because one of the mistakes I think crypto made early on is the use of foundations, as an example, was really just more of a hideout, right? For, how to launch a token offshore compliantly or whatever, or at least skirt the system. It wasn't based on a game design. And hang on, I gotta dismiss that. It wasn't based on game design. It was based on legal convenience, right? Or, some sort of like workaround. The thing that we did is, well, let me back up and finish why I think that's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea to use a foundation because the incentives are shit. And there's no incentives for a foundation to create any value or incentivize people to contribute. A foundation is going to act like a corporation with even worse incentives. It's terrible. Like, not-for-profits are not that good either. So like a lot of times in the world of choices, because our current version of capitalism has turned out to be highly exploitable and very concentrated and very crony-esque and very kind of like corrupt in a lot of ways, people's knee-jerk reaction is to overcorrect, like, somehow, creating value, making money is bad. So then we overcorrect to the not-for-profit or the foundation thing. But then we forget that, like, the whole point is like, wait, the question is, how do you thread the needle of building value, but then distributing and incentivizing your entire stakeholdership in a sustainable way that actually creates that buoyancy and scalability over time? Those are the positive sum games that we're now building with DAOs, and how we, create, tangential relationships with communities like Opolis or whatever. Like, this is the path to building $10 trillion networks, right? This isn't going to be, where we get capped out on corporation scalability or corruption kicks in or whatever. Like, there's so much opportunity in redesigning the game incentives around all of this. So, like, I mean, I could go on for days on economic game design and all of this stuff, but like, yeah, it's a very interesting thing to be dealing, because we're on the bridge, to your point, Travis, like, we're on the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. We have to deal with some of these legacy systems that are just terrible. And you're just like, hold your nose, and we just do it, right? Eventually, the goal would be to either displace or rebuild all of the core components that we need and not depend on any of these folks for external service.
The employment legals. Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah, exactly correct.
Also, and having our own like Web3 GDP growing, will allow us to actually be able to.
Why not? Why not? It's going to take a little time, but I don't see any
product. You like it. No, what it takes is people with stomach and patience to understand this type of solution that is an elegant design, that it's so attractive to the people that don't want to have to deal with it, to part ways with 1% of the value flow, to have this work for them, but also almost as an activistic choice that it will start working for other people as well. And everybody has a lot to gain. It must be really fun to be Vitalik at this point in history and look at what he kind of like, maybe if we tried this, maybe a bunch of intelligent people will show up and we're going to build this. Like 3 years ago, we're just trying to get to vote on shit, and it's getting a bit more interesting now.
Oh, and it's getting a lot more interesting. It's getting a lot more interesting.
I have two questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is, do you think that was sort of the quest of finding out what democratizing work meant for you that led you to Web3? in a weird mirror parallel to my
no,
thing with
no, 100%. No doubt about it. The epiphany that I had was, so in one of the previous startups, what happened was we tried to build a collaboration platform for talent acquisition. And it basically required like a police force, like somebody to come around and settle arguments and all sorts of, so like a centralized platform to like, arbitrate these disputes and this other crap. And it was just freaking terrible. And, in my unpacking of all the game design, it was basically, when I first had my first conversation with Vitalik back in like January or February 2016, I literally had no idea what I was talking about when it came to like blockchain tech or smart contracts. And it's evidenced very clearly by, where I was coming from. I was coming from a more corporate sort of centralized environment. And I was thinking about blockchain tech as like an efficiency tool more than like a complete revolution of things. And coordination, the minute I got it, the minute I understood it was the red pill moment. It was like, oh, holy shit. Like everything, all of this is fucked. Like it's all gone. And you have that realization and you're like, yeah. So 100%, like the path to democratization, all of the things that failed, like the things that I've tried since 2005, the different things that we've sort of experimented with, were all basically instrumental in helping form and create what is now Opolis. Opolis was not something we just came up with. I mean, this was like, you couldn't invent this. Like you couldn't just think it up. I mean, in hindsight, it's obvious, but like we had to go through it. It was a very iterative sort of like learning process. It was, call it boot camp, call it whatever you want, but like we didn't have the expertise or understanding of the social dynamics, the legal dynamics, the game dynamics, like all of it just took time to learn it. And then we took 2 years to package it and design something, another year to build a product. And then about a year ago, we came out the gate and started marketing it and, just building momentum. And, here we are. So
I have two more questions that I want to get through before we go crazy. What practical questions? One is like, do you have some numbers for us on like adoption, value flows, or like how big this 1 year of Opolis out of the gate has been?
We went from 0 to we're now pushing almost 12 million in annual payroll.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's coming. And the pipeline is another 25 million. So
nice.
Of estimated.
So you became your own enemy now. You have to your onboarding is your challenge.
Onboarding and education is really the big challenges because think about it.
That was my second question. What is your sensation, shortcomings, things you want to do better, etc. And I just ask it to your face.
The biggest thing that we need to do better. Well, there's really two things that we need to do better, and they kind of are related. The first is you shouldn't have to be a goddamn rocket scientist or a smart contract genius to be able to like understand how to run your small business. Okay. You shouldn't have to know everything about why it's better to incorporate in Wyoming versus Delaware or all this other crap. Like nobody cares. Once you do it, it's done, right? You just do it once and you kind of move on with your life because you got other things to do. So we need to do a better job at creating accessible content and a process flow for onboarding that is self-educational. So where people can come in and they can click 1 through 5 on these videos. Here are the 5 things that you need to know about moving into self-sovereign employment. Here's why you need to know them. Here's the best practices. And then
we've all run into in doing it and how we navigated it ourselves.
Right. And making it more accessible because let's be honest, it's terrifying. Okay. we have a lot of DAO participants that are members, right? And a lot of these guys or gals, right? So their spouse, who often doesn't know shit about any of this stuff, is freaking out because they don't have a W-2. Where are they going to get health care? Like, what are you doing with all this stuff? Like, how do we help them have that kitchen table conversation with their family about like normalizing their employment, right? 10 years from now, it's going to be commonplace to own your own employment. We're unbundling this corporate hierarchy bullshit. The subjugation is going away. In my opinion, it's done. It's toast. It's just a function of time. But we need to empower people and equip people with the education, the simple education, not the long view textbook, read all this crap, become an expert. No, the simple stuff that helps them be at least dangerous to know that they can get started and they've got a community there to support them.
Right. The rest kind of takes care of itself, but yeah,
the rest does. And once the community network effect really kicks in, which it hasn't yet, but when it does, the community is going to educate the community. We don't need to it's not going to be something that we have to have some sort of community sales engine. It's going to sell itself.
Right.
If we do that part right. So making the information accessible, simple,
hard knowledge.
Yeah, the simple hard knowledge. No sales bullshit. We don't really need to sell anything. There really isn't that much to sell with Opolis. The product is obvious. People are like, oh wait, I can wrap myself in an S corp and save a couple $1,000 a year in payroll taxes by being a little smart, and then I can save $300 a month from my healthcare insurance. Sold. It's not a hard sell, especially in Web3 where it's like self-sovereign employment, all the buzzwords that people love, right? And it's functionally backing that up, right? So we're not just saying it and playing a little sleight of hand. I mean, it's a community cooperative, it's decentralized governance, like all these things are layered into this that our communities love. So we don't need to sell shit. It's just a function of packaging it and delivering it in a way that people can more easily access the information. And then the second point that we need to do better is onboarding. So we're doing some collaborations with Collabland and a few other things to kind of, to embed some of this in Discord. We just to make it easier, it's like, my God, if you've ever been employed anywhere, it's absolutely terrible trying to get onboarded. The HR smugness and the condescending people asking you for your documents and all this other crap. Like, we need to make this so easy that a Bitcoiner could do it, like, I'm just kidding.
No.
All we really need to
I got two questions. So is your main target demographic, I guess, like people that are already in the space?
Right now,
crypto people, or do you see like a path where it could flip it the other way, where we can bring in more like Web2 people into DAOs through kind of this?
So our entire product, our entire product from a default standpoint is designed fiat to fiat. So it is absolutely designed for normie land. It's very easy for people that are not in the Web3 space to use it. We just intentionally designed it that way because the total addressable market for just crypto people is not big enough. And the other thing that we have a problem with is if you think educating people on like how to be a small business person is hard, try educating them on private key management. Okay, so good luck. So we've abstracted away a lot of those things by using delegated private key management and like really using advanced, UX techniques to like make it as simple as possible, but while still underneath the hood running, Web3 and progressively decentralizing the entire stack. I mean, some of the data we can't decentralize. It's PII data. It's employment data. It's your social security number. Like, we can't put that on chain anywhere at the moment. Like, where the hell are we going to put that? So there are some of the compliance activities that are just for the time being going to stay, you could call it centralized, but curated by what we call a trustee, which is benevolent to the community, right? So there's no, highly extractive third party managing any of this stuff. It's the community manages the community. So in any case, the target audience is one, those already independent, and it doesn't have to be crypto, but under that umbrella it could be crypto. The low-hanging fruit for us is obviously DAO people, DeFi projects, international contributors to blockchain companies. Like, why? Well, because people know us, right? Like, I'm the founder of ETH Denver, and we're around the space, and like people know who we are. So like, there's some trust and credibility in the community that we've built. So it's a lower hanging fruit, or to go after that community right now. It's a natural fit from a values alignment standpoint. So like, it's not like we're selling anything hard here to this community. This community is like, hell yeah, dude, I'm in. Let's go mine. Let's do some payroll mining. Like, it's cool.
As the DAO space grows, that you guys could almost be a placement kind of.
Yeah.
That you're dealing with Web2 folks, independent contractors, and you're like, well, this is kind of weird, but do you want to go work for a DAO?
And it could also help DAOs to hire Web2 people, that is the mechanism that I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, totally.
The other question I had was like some of these other corporate employee kind of things.
Yeah. So we've got a product called the Opolis. Yeah, so essentially what would happen is at scale, once you get enough members and people in the community, it kind of operates as its own market, like a talent marketplace. And it would be for the benefit of the community, which the community owners are the users, right? So if there were new products or new things, new ways of connecting people with opportunity that pop up, even DAO recruiting, it could easily become something, as a funnel or a channel that, if you want to get into Web3, where do you go? Well, you go to Opolis and you get in there and then you list yourself on the Opolis, and then, DAOs come and find you, like it could be something like that too. I do think that's a really critical component to, a secondary phase of growth. I don't think you can use those mechanics until you have enough size. Until you have the community that's big enough. Like, we're just not big enough quite yet. Get us to 100 million in total payroll volume, and I think we could start building some of those products out. But we're still tinkering on them now. We just haven't launched them into the wild.
So the other thing I was wondering was like these other traditional corporate employee things, like people are used to having sick time and personal time. Something you said, Vin, made me think that it's different. That's one of the things that's just totally different, because you're like a stakeholder.
You're independent.
Doesn't have sick.
You're independent. Yeah. So those are relics of sort of the subjugation mentality, the paycheck culture, right? So in the new world, your compensation is going to be more like a statement of work. It's going to be like, hey, get this shit done. Do they care when you do it? No. Do you go to some office where you got to punch the clock, or like, oh, I'm sick? Okay. Still what, dude? Nobody cares, right?
And because you're an actual because you're an actual stakeholder, you're actually like the upside of the company is paying for your personal time, I guess. And at least I guess that's the hope. But I know that it's easy to get burnt out in this space, and it's like having time off is important. So it still seems like a problem we need to think about, but it does feel like a relic at the same time, like giving people to.
No, it absolutely is a relic, man. It's
yeah, the giving is the relic, right? Like, you don't need to be given time off anymore. You just take it.
No, you work from, where, with whom, and how much you choose, right? So like, your compensation is now correlated to value creation, not time. See, the problem with the way we do the paycheck culture is it's correlated to time. So remember incentives? Like, there's a movie, Office Space, right? So I might be dating myself a little bit here, but it's hilarious, right? He's like, Bob, I think I do actually 15 minutes of actual work in any one given day, just enough not to get fired. Okay? Now, why is he doing that? He's only doing that because that's his only incentive. That's what people do. People are going to do what they're incentivized to do. So if they're incentivized to be productive, they're going to be productive. If you're incentivizing them just to sandbag their time, that's what they're going to do.
And there is there's a real thing that, even myself, I love to be very productive, but way back in the day when I was in those kind of situations, even if those are the incentives that are available to me, I'm not just going to work extra hard just because I want to be productive. I will sometimes, but if the incentives aren't there, then I'm just not going to do it, and it makes me sad. It's not like I'm not doing that because there's no incentive and whatever. I'm actually sad about it because I want to be a productive member of society. I want to produce and create value, but there's just no incentive to do so. So what happens? You just don't create value, or you create the minimum fucking value that's necessary to pick your paycheck up. Exactly. Totally flawed.
I'm part of the 2% of society who's just dumb and lives in a constant state of self-sacrifice, and kind of have to work myself into being a little bit more rational because I see from the artist perspective, which is kind of dumb. But I get what you guys are saying. From the artist perspective, I also want to remind everybody to go claim your POAPs because they're pretty cool. They're much more special now, and they're designed and illustrated by Adrienne, and they're awesome. And John, don't forget it. You don't want to miss this part. I know you're a POAP guy, but our POAPs are better than your POAPs. You need to up your POAP game now. You're gonna see this POAP, you're gonna go like, holy shit! I need to sweat for better sport illustrations. Hire Adrian. So I'm saying, right, leave our DAO collaborator alone. So we're coming on to the home stretch here, and again, I'll try to get people from the audience to participate. I think just as giving vacation is a relic, and a lot of the work relationships is a relic. Another thing that I think is a relic is the stage audience dynamic, and I like to break that as much as I can at my events, at the fourth wall. So maybe John and I have connected over the opportunities that we had in Japan. So if you have anything to say, please let us know and open your mouth and make some noise. It's also from Deacon. Then what if all of this was working and perfectly functional for what we're doing, global coverage, etc., what would we do immediately? Because that's what I'm really curious about. I have one mission. I want people to quit their jobs. That's what I want people to do.
Yeah, well, you heard the go bankless thing, right? I'm a big fan, and some people in our community think that this is a little hard for people to access. But I like the concept of going jobless. Like, you don't need a job, man. It's a work-life integration is the new game. You're going to be contributing value, building value, expressing your own creativity, your unique creativity in DAOs that move you, right? In communities that move you. This isn't work. It's not work when you're doing that, right? So
just commandeer the lay flat movement in China. Just get all those people to DAO up.
Right. Yeah, maybe. So as far as if somebody wants to get started in this world, the first thing I would do is evaluate your risk tolerance, right? Like, you've got to really go into this eyes wide open. But then, there's things that you can do. Opolis is a great place to get a lot of information about how to professionalize and how to legitimize your efforts. It's pretty easy to get started with one of our membership stewards. 0x Joshua is a member of the DAO House community. So is Bill Warren. They both work with me on the project full time. So we contribute to a lot of different communities in addition. So just get with one of them in Discord and set up a time to get with our membership stewards, and we can handhold you. You don't have to know everything. We'll spoon feed it, and we'll help you get started. We'll even help you get your incorporation done. We'll help you do everything that you need to do, the check boxes. And then
get one of those unmarried and not that people that work with you and haven't procreated to come to the Taoists and hold workshops at each of the check boxes in Lisbon, please. Yeah, because actually, we're building a huge workshop hall with 6 simultaneous workshop tables. I'm tired of workshops being an afterthought at events. Workshops are going to be the meat and the bread of the Taoist this time around in Lisbon, and you need to send some people over if you. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about MCon right now because that's next week. So we can start talking about
okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, we'll be at both though.
Yeah, go.
We'll be Opolis folks in Portugal and at MCon.
Oh, nice. That's badass.
Yeah, we'll be at MCon. Obviously, I'm Denver native, so I will be around everywhere. We'll be hosting the SporkDAO poker tournament on Friday afternoon, which will be kind of wrapping up the week. We are for the winning person of the SporkDAO poker tournament will win a custom SporkDAO poker set. Custom cards, custom tips, custom case, the whole thing. NFTs. It's beautiful.
What's the buy-in on the poker tournament again?
I think it's 1,000 spork.
Okay, cool. Yeah, nice.
And it's not digital, I'm assuming.
No. Now you gotta be there, Felipe. We did that intentionally because we know you're a shark, bro.
Oh, honestly. No, the thing is, man, I know I'm a shit narcissist, but I just think I deserve getting one of those poker sets in my door. You know, I'm going to be a standing member of this community till the day I die, hosting many poker games. It's a wise investment for you to get one of those to show up. Now I have a home and an address. Just saying. I think you should be paying me money to have that
I can try to win.
I love your forwardness about that, Felipe. Okay.
Yes, come on. I was up at 4 in the morning hosting your poker stream at the least if never.
Oh,
losing
it was so much
live
fun.
for everybody to see.
Just quick little comment. Anyone who wants to go do the Opolis thing, and make sure that you go in like the donator or helper path, go through like the other path, because I went through the other path and it ended up kind of boning me. And yeah, I would much rather be a community supporter and do it that way.
Thank you for the tip. But you guys want to talk MCon? We have 2 minutes. Just give everybody the where's and the hows and the what. Because I bet half of this room is going to be in MCon.
Yeah, so the Woods Boss Brewery is actually the people that did our Pegabuffacorn Sour custom batch at ETH Denver 2020, if you had that. So they got a brand new space called The Lodge right adjacent to their original tap room. So like the space is like super dope. The internet works, like it's all really great. That area is sort of in between sort of Lodo and Rhino. It's like this, it's like super hip spot. It's pretty much in between everything, between downtown, Lodo, Rhino Ballpark, everything. So like it's a great location. What I've heard is there's a huge friggin' wait list. Well, I've not just heard that, I've seen it. But there's a huge wait list. There's probably going to be hundreds more people in town that actually have tickets, similar to Paris, right, where people didn't have tickets to ECC and they just showed up anyway. I could swear there was like 3,000 people in Paris and there was only 1,000 tickets. So I think it's going to be great. I love the format that they've put together. So the conference only goes to 2 p.m. every day because it gives people opportunities for side events and just socializing and getting together. So it's going to be beautiful in Denver. I mean, this is the time of year when it starts to cool off a little bit, and the leaves are changing. Up in the mountains. Like I think there's a bunch of people going up to the mountains the weekend after MCon. So like, yeah, it's going to be from my view, it's my home turf. So like, I love it. But like, yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah,
Denver is not my home turf, but I do love it as well. And I'm so sorry I'm not going to be there. FOMO is wild.
Oh, maybe I'll grab you that iPad and just walk you around as an iPad.
I would love that. That would be great. We are, gentlemen, at the top of the hour. Yeah, I'll be the Snow Dean. It was beautiful talking to you, John. I'm really hopeful that all the moving parts of this master plan come together smoothly globally as soon as possible, and stick it to the fucking man. That's it. That's
Agreed.
all we're trying to do
the final call to action is if you haven't joined or if you haven't explored it, come explore it. There's no real cost or obligation. There's nothing to sell you. You're just going to run your payroll, do your compliance, get your healthcare, do whatever you need or not. It's modular, so you can do a bunch of different things. And you can earn work rewards for doing it and help build the community. And refer your friends. You also get rewards for that. So it's a thing that builds on itself. So like, come help us build the future of work. Love to have you.
And if you're European, fork it. Don't wait for John to get here.
I'm coming, man. Don't worry.
Well, I didn't get my poker set yet, so I'm going to tell the truth for now. So, much love. Deacon has transformed into let's fucking stick it.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. We have to race to the Rangers meeting as usual, and let's all Hornets 93. See you all around.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.